You found the Live Local Marketing Podcast, where business owners share their knowledge about what's working in the market today. No fluff, just their experiences and stories from people who are making it happen. And if authentic, practical marketing resonates with you, be sure to visit livelocalwarmmarketing.com and learn to grow your business on warm marketing referrals. Now, on to the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining us here again, another Live Local Warm Marketing. And today we have with us George. Sir, how are we doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Billy. How are you?
Doing well. George is the first repeat guest ever. If you want to go back to the previous episode, we'll put the link in the description, but we talked about marketing and the arts and specifically, but I wanted to take another step and talk about the events, because the events and event planning is such a huge part. And we have lots of questions from our audience about that we brought him back on to talk about the event part of his marketing as well. So thank you for humoring us and coming back on, sir.
No, it's a real honor. Thank you again for having me again.
Yeah.
I'd be honored to share more of the experience.
All right, we'll do an abridged intro just in case people don't go back and watch the other one. So George, he holds talks and panels and workshops around the world, including institutions such as the Juilliard School, the Royal College of Music, Classical, Next, Somerset House, and I'm going to butcher this, Concours de Genevieve. Google it. Like, you'll see. My French is awful, so I'm sure I butchered it, but his experience speaks for itself. George, are we ready for the question, sir?
We're ready. Let's go.
All right. So talk to us about a time where you had a loss and it turned out to be a win.
I think when you're working either in an agency or for yourself, obviously sometimes you get really very large clients, I think, that can take up quite a lot of your time and help with kind of more of a financial way, like big pay, big ones are like that, and it can take up a lot of your time. So I think one of the biggest ones when I was working at an agency, I was working for a classical music festival, which is quite a big one in Europe. I can't say who it is, but it's one of the big ones in Europe, very kind of prestigious. And I think there was one year when suddenly, just due to unforeseeable circumstances, their budget got cut. There was less support from the local government. And so they weren't able to afford our services anymore. And of course, that had a massive knock-on effect to the finances now. So a really big financial black hole, a really big loss. And so, however, what it turned out was there was not only us leaving, there was a lot of other kind of staff leaving, and it turned into a pretty bad kind of environment kind of in general. So I'd say that it turned into a win because it allowed us to work with some other amazing, it freed up time, allowed us to work with a lot of amazing other artists and projects and events that we wouldn't have before, while also maintaining reputation and the time back of what it was. So I'd say that probably story of having the big festival, which was a good one, just due to those kind of search, and turned into a win because it opened up so many other opportunities. So, one door closes, several more open. So I think that's a good loss.
So if you were to choose, I know all the events are your favorite. I get it. You can't pick a favorite child. But if I'm saying, hey, listen, you can choose your style of event, where do you gravitate? Where do you find the most enjoyment?
I find the most enjoyment working for festivals, and the reason being is it's year long. And yes, it may be only for either a weekend or a month or a 6 weeks, but it is all year round, and there's different kind of dynamics that you get throughout the whole year. So it's like, what are you doing to try and get ticket sales earlier, like 10, 12 months in advance? Are you doing an early bird that occurs after that one? Then you move into, once you're getting more of the confirmed lineup, how you're going to utilize those artists and what is the real impact and why are they there and how does it all knit together, and weaving that story of the whole festival. Then you're getting to crunch time 3 or 4 months out, going last minute deals, those kind of things along those, and what packages work, securing some support from the local transport services, coming on the hotels and things along those lines. And then you have the festival itself, which of course is an amazing kind of experience. It's full on. I mean, I was on the ground running the social media team, so I was fortunate enough to be part of that and seeing all this amazing work. So it's just so varied. You're throughout the whole course of the year as well. So I think working on festivals And music was a big one for me, just due to the variety. And if I'm going to be honest, I enjoy the intensity. It really is something. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to shift gears because this one's my question for sure. When you're setting up events and you sit down with everybody, how do you arrange your goals? Because if you can't have everybody be happy on every platform. I mean, there has to be goals set. How do you go about doing that? How do you set them up? How do you follow through with them? A quick break before we get to that next answer, because I know that answer is going to be brilliant, which is why I chose this moment to interrupt. If you love what you're seeing and you want to run your business off of warm marketing referrals, visit our website, livelocalwarmmarketing.com. It's got valuable resources, office hours, memberships, the book, an array of resources to help you get rid of cold calls, cold leads, door knocking, and run a business you can be proud of through referrals and warm marketing. Now, back to the show.
I think setting goals is hugely important, and a lot of the time, a lot of people miss that. I'm all for one of starting from the end. That you start from where you want to be, and then all of the decisions work towards that. You shouldn't do something just because you think it should be. You shouldn't jump on the shiny new object. It's being really efficient with that. So setting goals, hugely important. Of course, a lot of the time it's financial. It's ticket sales. Who's going to come? How much are they going to pay? Which countries are you going to target? Is it local, or is it enough that is it in the middle of nowhere? And so you need a broader kind of base. Are you targeting local cities, cultural centers, things along those lines? So those on the financial kind of gain. Now, the other part of this is when you work with larger institutions or people putting on larger kind of events or tours, is there is a global reputation. So yes, maybe that person got them this year, but you have to make them feel like they're missing out to come next year. So how are you doing campaigns for retention of and building that warm audience? How are you doing that? How are you making people have what we would call FOMO, or fear of missing out? Is that happening in the festival? Is that happening year round? So that goal is things along like, are we looking at increasing numbers in the CRM from a different country? Are we going that specific? Are we just looking at newsletter signups? Are we looking at followers? Actual actionable ways that we can talk to people again. So those two, I would say, are depending on the goals, depending on what you want the outcomes to be and what those goals are. But those two particularly have different approaches. And sitting down with the team and establish what they really want and the longer term strategy is super important to make it most effective.
So you did big mention already some of the marketing and advertising. So there's lots of variety of strategies in regards to that. So talk to us about like a very effective cold marketing strategy to get people to come to these events, and talk to us about a warm marketing strategy we may not originally be thinking of that could be effective as well.
Sure. So in the cold and getting people kind of aware, you use content that has like from some of the sold out shows, or previous kind of events. So what is the real hook? And there could be many different ones, but usually it's going to be to do with how the artist and their artistic vision and performance. So you use that, you send that out, you edit the video probably more than anything else to cook them in the first 3 seconds, show the value of it and things along those lines. So this person's performing either near you or where like that. So again, it's a different kind of asset to the warm kind of side of things, which is where you add more value and kind of convince more, as you're well aware. So the cold is kind of be it hooky, hook them in, make them interested, do several different layers and see which one kind of works. Warm, there's a different kind of approaches. I think that adding more context as to why. So you're already interested in this artist or you're interested in this musician. Why do they have that kind of interpretation? This is where you speak to them, you start doing interviews, you start delving into what is special to them about the piece that they're performing, or like what's the story, and you start sharing more of the story, the emotional kind of connection that they have, and that is more for the warm audience, because if you try and do that with a cold audience, they're not necessarily always interested, they're not yet engaged. There's no reason for a why, but particularly, as I say, in like music, it's sharing more of the story once they're kind of hooked in understanding that it's a great thing to be at, and it's adding more value.
Do you try to move the cold into the warm through storytelling and through capturing, or do you always treat them like two different groups of people in your audience?
I think it kind of really depends on how the audience interacts. You never really know. But from what I've found is that once you draw them in, and you treat them as a separate kind of content in that way, then just usually most of the time, invariably, the warm audience does receive some of that.
Yeah.
They will kind of see it even in that kind of way, if it's either a social media post or something along those lines. But what I always find the most effective is trying to treat the warm as being special in some exclusivity in some kind of way in the content that you're delivering, some extra kind of stuff and an extra bonus that they're inside or something kind of more valuable. So I do treat them differently. I talk to them differently. That's what I would always kind of recommend as they perform kind of different functions.
Could I make the assumption that the warm marketing is really where you're trying to make the connections, and if you get a couple of colds to show up to the event, great, but warm is really where my focus are because I know that they're engaged and I know they're emotionally attached?
Exactly. Warm is the
Okay.
big one. And particularly if you're working with orchestras over a season, this is a good example of a ward audience. And a lot of a problem that I have to get people out of, you shouldn't be rebuilding your audience every season. You shouldn't be treating the cold people. And there is a big flaw that they have. It's like you try and get people over from that season into the next one. Yes, you're playing different things. But if you're not trying to establish something with the reputation of the orchestra itself, you're doubling your work. It's like, why are you not? You're building those people that have already come. Why are you treating them? Why are you forgetting about them? It makes some sense. Yeah,
it does. That is a great answer. That's a great answer. All right, so let's shift gears. Let's talk about things that don't work. So I'm sure you've had to deal with like Ticketmaster type stuff, and I'm sure you've had Eventbrites and various websites to try to bring people in. What strategies are you like, you know what? Don't waste your time. This is probably not going to be worth your time or money.
I think being really selective of where you do paid advertising, really be focused on where which funnels or channels actually convert and being really kind of strict with it. Where is your audience? Now, this doesn't mean to say that you don't test and try new things. It will always be surprises. I do think that you can over optimize to a certain way, allow room for surprises, allow room to be wrong. But definitely like focus out. So for example, classical music, where I've done a lot of my time, has let's say a very specific major demographic that buys tickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what if you know kind of what you're doing or understand the context of where you're trying to advertise, looking at the channels and the demographic growth of each one. So for instance, Facebook is usually particularly good because that's where the audience is. Whereas on TikTok, less so. And that's not to mean to say you don't advertise on TikTok, but maybe kind of push it in kind of different ways, being very selective about where you're putting things. The other one with marketing in general, and it's not just paid advertising, about thinking about your channel. There was one consultancy that I did where an orchestra rebranded and then lost a lot of their retention from donors, old school donors. I was like, why is this all changed? No one likes change, let's be honest. You do have to evolve, but no one likes it. They were not interested in like these new apps and not interested in seeing newsletters online and things like those. And they really missed having the physical program sent to them by post. Now, as a cost-cutting exercise, it was decided to kind of get rid of that. However, when you go back, it's like, if you're trying to re-engage these people, meet them. Don't try and force them onto something. If you send them a newsletter, first of all, they're not opening it because they probably don't have an email address. So you're not actually talking to them at all. Meet where they want to be. It is not that much to send them. And this is what we did in the end was, we got the CEO to write a letter saying, thank you for all your years of support, and sent it by
Poem.
mail, just do it that way, and then there's something physical that is a method and channel that they respond to, so that at least you get the open. So understanding that audience and choosing which channel and trying and seeing which one works.
So right before we go to the next one, because this has to be a follow-up question. You're talking about the paid marketing and you're talking about getting them into places. When you funnel them, what kind of paid services are you funneling them to, like a Ticketmaster? Are you funneling them to a paid site? What paid sites do you recommend that are the least friction? Because collecting the money is definitely a very difficult element of this.
I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of it is hard because particularly in events, a lot of the channels aren't very easy at sharing their data. And particularly if you're working with larger concert houses or things like those, unfortunately, a lot of the time, they don't even understand what they've got, let alone be able to give it to you and understand the function of that. Sometimes they're Eventbrite, as much as for floors and large ones, sometimes has a good kind of setup. You can input your Pixel, you can input your Google, and you can feel safe and confident in that one. So at the moment, that's the one that I've gone. There is some new kind of services in Europe called, I think it's WeTix, but they've recently rebranded. But I do think there is a gap for events pages in that kind of way, and send them there. However, I would say that owning as much as possible your data, if there is a way of getting either a plugin on your own website in some kind of way and having it filter through there, at least then you're fully in control. But most of the time, what I have found is trying to make custom setups isn't necessarily always the total way forward unless you want to really spend the time and invest in it. That's what I've found, because it breaks and then you have to spend more in that kind of way.
And if you're a data person, that might be your way if you're into it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just that conversation could be probably an entire episode. I'm assuming collecting the money could just be the episode, but we're not going to do that to people because there's other stuff we have to talk about. So when you sit down with a group, how do you come up with a theme, an idea, a brand that goes with them? Because you have to have some kind of like theme to it or else people won't be as excited.
Yeah. Everything has to tie to it. There has to be a story. People engage with stories. They're not particularly interested in facts. If I said to someone, this person's the top 1% or can play 97 notes a minute, that's not as good as saying this is the person that comes from this man has an emotional connection with it in that kind of way. So it's the stories are always, for me, what I always suggest in regards to the brand and how does that fit into story that you're wanting to tell, either as an artist and what you represent. It's not just individuals. I think, and I will say this, individuals and artists do have a bit of an advantage in this way. And that's why putting yourself rather than being something faceless will always engage more. I think that's something that business can definitely learn from the arts is to have the personal kind of, sometimes people feel uncomfortable with it, but it's personalizing, not necessarily just a person. It's understanding that people engage with stories that are connected with people. So understanding that it's the people first, the stories that are kind of there, what you want to kind of say, but is also authentic. A lot of the time, particularly in the arts as well, some things can feel tokenistic, should we say, and if it comes from a place of not being authentic or integrity, people can smell it a mile off. You may not think so, and it's probably not worth doing it. And sometimes it's worse because you lose credibility. And this is one of the big things of the approach that I do in regards to branding. It's where can you draw from that is true and how that reflects and is mirrored into what you're displaying as well. So because it feels more genuine.
Do a lot of these places let you pick a theme or like, hey, we're getting a group together, we're going to name it this, go ahead and choose a theme, or do they have it pretty much preloaded before they sit down with you? Or both?
A lot of them, it's both. Sometimes they've got that season of who they want to kind of be as an artist, and then they come and say, well, how can we make the story between them? And then you kind of have a look and see if you can kind of either match them differently or book someone else to kind of put in and cultivate it that way as an overall season. Sometimes it's done for you, like in 250, it's the season for this year. Most orchestras, most institutions will be focusing on the story of 250 in 250 years of the USA. So
Nice.
that's done for you. So it's all up and down, but it's crafting and weaving that kind of story across the different, and so it all makes
And I'm sure you have
sense.
processes and you have ways you do about and go about doing it. And so that actually moves us right into the next one, because I'm going to ask you, what was the best advice about event planning you ever received?
Not everybody is going to be interested. I think that's the best advice I've ever done. And what that kind of put in my head was that if you're trying to market to everyone, if you're trying to do everything, you're not really speaking or connecting with anyone. If you're trying to go for everyone, you're not getting anyone, because people don't, if you're made to feel like it's generic or whether it's something that is a catch-all, nobody likes that. If I said to someone, you're the same as this, or like you just will, you don't engage with it. So that is definitely one of the best ones. That don't be scared of being specific, and don't be scared of sharing what you know, or if you think that it's too niche, particularly now where I would consider that we're in narrow casting, it's easier to niche down, and you will find your own. The algorithm's got pretty good at being able to send it to the right people a lot of the time, as long as you're putting in and what you're talking about. So don't be scared of being specific, and don't be scared of really going for the individual things that make it interesting, because those are the people that you really want to engage with a lot of the time as well.
So, I mean, a lot of people are like, I identify as somebody who appreciates classical music. That's your person. You don't want to get the headbanging rock and roll music people. They may not fit your niche. So when you're setting up the people to perform, I'm sure that's also playing a factor, because you really don't want a different mix or variety of people, because then you're hitting a bunch of different audiences and it confuses.
Exactly. If you're not if you're not talking to the same people through multiple kind of things, where are you? Where's your anchor? Who is it for? What are you doing? It doesn't make a lot of sense, and people don't really engage with it because there's no story. Again, it comes back to what that thread is and who it's speaking to and who it resonates with.
I've even, when I've done events in the past, I've had that same issue of like making sure the vendors and people that are participating along with the main point of attraction, that also has to fit that same niche, that same theme. Because if you have people that are not a vendor that doesn't meet classical music, for example, then
everyone is there for an experience. Everyone is going for an experience and taking away. And so the experience is not just the thing that's happening on stage.
Exactly.
It's everything else around it. So, why is it in a concert hall, and why is it such an interesting thing of putting a string quartet in a pub or something out of or a club or in something like that? In itself, that friction is interesting and will engage with a different type of person. So understand that. Totally agree.
Makes sense. All right, so last one before we get to the business. Confidence. Let's talk to the person who is thinking about doing an event and has heard your talk, and you're like, you know what, I think I have some ideas. What types of things would you say to them in regards to like their confidence level about hosting their first event?
I mean, it's great that you're doing it. Great that you're doing this first step. Everyone has to start somewhere, and the best time is always now. So well done to you for getting this off the ground. And it can be intimidating because there can be a lot of financial implications alongside whether people are actually going to enjoy it. Have the vision of what you want it to be and what you want people to feel. What do you want people to take away from this experience? That's what I would consider to be the really kind of core to give kind of, if you come from that place, and if you're making decisions as to, again, going back to setting goals, the goal would be, what do you want people to take away with? Is this decision kind of going towards that? Is this, as you've rightly put, is this vendor the correct one? Do people engage with that? Or is there a mismatch in some kind of way? Is the pricing kind of appropriate? What actually, if you're like tiered pricing, what value are you giving for each kind of step as well, and more of a heightened kind of experience? And don't be scared to test and learn. You're probably not always going to get it right. You definitely won't. But that's okay. That's okay. But try things and scale it. And just understand that you're working with people, not with numbers. Or data points, as I like to put it a lot of the time. Starting from that kind of what's the experience and what we want people to take away with is what I would say is the first one.
All right. So real quick before we do the business one, I want you to talk about like an event that you had that did not go according to plan, and then one that like nailed it and you were excited at the outcome.
There was one that was in Germany. It was a typical story of we tried everything just to try and get people to kind of attend. And unfortunately, they just weren't buying tickets. People were not engaging with it at all. It's one of the worst ones is an empty room. And it's like, you have to go away, reassess. Why not? It's like, why did they not? And having a look, and is it the repertoire? Is it the quality? What is it? So that was a pretty... it's particularly when you think it's going to do well as well.
Yeah.
I think one that really kind of knocks it out of the park was I worked on one of the big festivals in Germany, in Leipzig. The amount, and what really hit it home for me was the amount of international audience. You go there and what you were able to kind of bring in, and you saw that comparatively, and the impact that you've had on bringing people that want to be there in the birthplace, it's not the birthplace, sorry, it's in where Bach is core and is key. Got it. How you've been able to reach those people and bring them in. I think that was the one where I really kind of hit it out of the park for me. It's like, we resonated. Something really hit home, and you can see it in the ticket sales and the international people there.
That's amazing. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about your first event, hopefully this helps you a little bit, setting goals, making sure you're branding properly, making sure you have all your systems set in place. And then we're going to let George finish us off here with the outro, talking about the business and how to get a hold of him if you have more questions about setting up your event.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm George. I'm a digital strategist and marketing leader with 14 years of international experience. And I partner with local and international brands and auction organizations to bridge the gap in marketing between integrity and technical performance. My goal is to transform digital presence into measurable growth, whether it's in events, by being human-led and data-driven, ensuring that the people behind the data never get lost in the analytics. Whether it's scaling ticket sales for a concert season or auditing for effective global data infrastructure for e-commerce, I provide the strategy and execution that builds relationships and growth. So let's protect your brand's integrity while accelerating its growth. You can book a free consultation with me and we'll kick off with a conversation, see if we can work together.
That's awesome. Is your website the easiest way to get a hold of you?
GeorgePercy.com.
Yeah, that's the easiest website ever.
Yeah, I was lucky with that one. Yeah.
All right, George, thank you for coming back here today. The topic of events is always one that people always have a million questions about, and it's one of the most intimidating. So your knowledge and your expertise is certainly appreciated. We appreciate your time today.
It's been an honor. Thank you for having me back, and I wish you all the well, and I hope you can help.